Hey folks, I'm Papa Boris, back reviewing some more games from the 2026 Through the Ages World Championship. This was the first game to finish of Stage 3. As a quick reminder, I am in the lower bracket, having just missed the cutoff in the upper bracket of Stage 2, and I was the ratings favorite going into this stage by over 150 points compared to Antoine and Coman. The one wild card here is how you doing. This is, as of the last Glico rating update, an unrated player, so that was a player to watch. Let's go ahead and begin. Antoine, obviously in this game, doesn't really have much of a choice. You clearly take the pyramids here. It's, a great wonder. Gives you an extra action. The rest of the stuff's crap, so not much to say there. But Hugh turn is a little bit interesting. I think that for the second player, there is another clear choice, which is to take Hammurabi, one of the best leaders. Extra actions are great. And you're early in the player order, so the loss of the military action is mitigated by that. Also, if we take a look at the leaders, there is one military leader here, Sun Tzu, but he's not coming up until later. Caesar's not in the game, so you might just not have that much military pressure in this game. So it's a clear pick. But How You Doing decides to grab a rock and Homer, and maybe I'm biased, but I really don't like Homer. So I would personally call this a mistake. And you're like, oh, Boris, you're just biased. You just don't like that Homer requires you to build your AJ Wonder and get an age 1 leader really fast. You don't give this guy a fair shot. You know what? Yeah, but I'm the one making the video. So for my money, I think this is an out-and-out mistake. So I was very happy as the third player because now it means that I get to take Hammurabi and a free food. And then it goes over to Coman, who was not in as lucky of a position as me, because I think I got like a one really good leader here, and the other two are okay, but not amazing. Personally, as the fourth player, I would just take another free food in one of these two, depending on my mood. Coman prefers the engineering genius, which is fine. I think it's a perfectly reasonable decision as well. I will just mention that when you do this as the fourth player, when you take any card from the 3 row as the fourth player and the last remaining card in the 1 row is patriotism, you should consider just not taking it because it's such a bad card. It takes up space in your hand, so there is a cost to taking it if you never use it. I'm not saying it was wrong of Coman to take it here, just something to think about in your own games. All right, so that's the draft. We go back over to Antoine. He got the pyramids. Now he has his choice of middling leader. He grabs Alexander. You could take Confucius, who I think is a lot better, and just go take and play Confucius for 3 actions and then build a mine. That's completely acceptable in my opinion, but it's fine also to just take a random leader from age A. He takes him, plays him, builds a mine, grabs raises population here, all totally normal stuff. You could, of course, take a free food, but that's a little frisky because if you play an event and that's either the free temple or the free warrior, you don't get to use it. On the other hand, you are the first player, so this is where that is the least likely to happen because you don't have 3 people potentially playing events in front of you. You could take the free food and try to forestall the turn 2 doldrums by having spent an action now, so you have an extra thing to do next time, which is to raise your population. Not necessarily saying that's bad, or just a reasonable action if you'd like to do that. So now How You Doing is in a little bit of a pickle because the wonder that's available for him is the Hanging Gardens, but on the other hand, he also wasn't that unlucky with Homer, because you really wanted something that doesn't come with a happy face, and the Colossus just slid into the 2nd row. So he makes his mine, grabs the Colossus, and then raises population. I think of all of us here, How You Doing played like the most solid, clean game of Through the Ages. Not any weird stuff in the early game, other than the draft. Other than the draft of taking Homer over Hammurabi. He played a really clean early game, and this is an important learning moment for you newer players. Notice how he raises population here instead of playing Homer. The thing is, Homer doesn't actually do anything when you play him, so there's no difference between playing him now and playing him later. Like, eventually you're going to raise your population, and eventually you're going to play Homer. But raising the population now means that if Antoine plays an event, or if How You Doing himself plays an event, and it is the free temple or the free warrior, you've got a worker here to take advantage of it. So that could actually be a big difference, and if you make this type of little adjustment enough times, eventually it will come to fruition. So a nice play by our unrated wildcard, and it's back over to me. So me, I'm just like, oh my god, there's Confucius, the other best age A leader, but it's okay. I have Hammurabi, so I play him, I make a mine, and I grab the Colosseum and raise population with my bonus action. I don't like Hanging Gardens. Colosseum gives you 1 happy face instead of 2. It doesn't give any culture, but it does give you some science discounts and a military action, and military action's a really big deal. With Hammurabi, by the way, it does kind of compensate for your loss, so I think you got to take the Colosseum here. I've been biased against it for a while, and I've been trying to experiment with it more, and I gotta say, I like this wonder. Maybe it's a player count thing. I know Weidenbaum talks about how it matters, like, what the player count is for Colosseum, though embarrassingly, I don't remember if he said that it's better or worse in higher player games, but in the 4-player games where I've been trying it, it's actually been doing all right, and 3-player games also, so I'm working on erasing some of my bias against this wonder. It is a perfectly fine wonder, in the military action, as we'll see actually in this game, can play a really big role. So Hammurabi lets me get that extra worker out, so I'm also prepared for a free temple or a free warrior, and we go over to Comment. And this player, it was really, really striking to me. Just so you know, this player is the most experienced player at the table. According to his Through the Ages profile, he has played more than like 2,500 games of Through the Ages. Just for comparison, I've had this game since 2018, and I played a lot. I mean, there have been times where I played more, times where I played less, but I played this game a lot. I'm coming up on 370 games. I consider that an enormous number of times to play one board game. He has played this game over 2,500 times. And in tournaments on the Glico rating page, it says that he has over 1,100 opponents. Now, to be clear, when you play like a 4-player game, that gives you 3 opponents. That is not the same as saying he's played over 1,100 competitive games. But, he's had over 1,100 opponents. For the record, I've had like around 100, so like he's a very experienced player, but the way he plays is extremely strange, at least in this game. So he takes Confucius, plays him. Okay, that's all fine. And now what are you going to do with your other 2 actions? Well, you're going to build a mine and raise population, right? Right? Well, not, come on. He grabs an urban growth and another urban growth. I don't understand this. If this was not such an experienced player, I would be very much more critical here. I maybe am missing something, but I do believe that his strategy of not building a mine just doesn't make any sense, and it's a mistake, and he would be stronger if he cleaned up his early game. Basically, if it were a normal player, I would comment that, okay, one of these is fine. You're not raising population in exchange for saving a rock and trying to beat the turn 2 doldrums, but the second one is definitely a mistake because it gives you a rock. Building a mine also gives you a rock, so you're just throwing away an action. I've made this kind of commentary before. Now, with Comment, it's a little different because what ends up happening is he does not build this mine, I'm not kidding you, for the entire first age. He just rolls through age 1 on 2 mines. And what that does give you is an extra worker, and he does use that extra worker. Through most of age 1, he is using up all of his workers, so he did not, technically have the ability to build the mine and do whatever other stuff he was doing in the first age. I still think it's just wrong, though. You should just raise your population and make a mine. So we'll see how it plays out. It's very, very interesting game style here by Mr. Comment in age 1 of this particular 4-player game. So Antoine pops Alexander, and he gets pretty lucky. The second card off the top of the age 1 deck is Isabella, who is a good leader in general, and also a great leader to have early when you're Alexander and fishing for a new replacement. She just gives you an extra rock every turn, plus the 2 blue tokens to help you manage the rocks. So this is a really good turn of events for him. Now, I do think he makes a slight mistake here. I often talk about the age A wonder and whether you should rush it versus playing your second lab. And I've said that the pyramids is one that it's okay to rush and give up a science on, or even 2 science, because it gives you an extra action, and that kind of makes up for losing the science. However, in this extremely particular case, I believe that you should build your lab and just raise your population instead of starting to rush the pyramids. And the reason for that is that you're Isabella and you're getting 4 rocks per turn instead of 3. And that's a big difference because normally when you're making 3 rocks, you need 2 age A events to go your way, a 2-rock one and a 1-rock one, or both of the 2-rock ones, to get the 6 rocks that you need to build the pyramids in 1 turn. But if you're making 4 rocks per turn, you only need 1 age A event to go your way. You just need this development of crafts, which gives 2 rocks, or the development of markets, which gives you 2 rocks or 2 food, and then with your 4 rock production, you get your 6 rocks and can make the pyramids next turn. Okay, Jan is a good leader, but okay, you already taken a leader, so the leaders don't matter. There's a bunch of crapanola here on the card row, so next turn, there's nothing wrong with just like spending 3 actions to build the pyramids. You'll then have 2 actions left, and honestly might not have much to do with those 2 actions anyhow. So I would have built a lab here, and just raised population and played normally. And then, okay, if I get 2 rocks, I can build the pyramids. If not, it's fine. I still have, I can make one thing of the pyramids and then, do other stuff. But I think it's worth taking that chance, because if you do get the 2 rocks, then you end up just throwing away a science. Anyway, he raises population here and builds the first stage of the pyramids instead of building a lab, and we're off to the races. So how you doing here? Playing very solid, drops an event in. We get a free warrior, which he avails himself of. He then raises population, plays Homer. Homer is admittedly kind of nice here. Oftentimes when you build that first warrior, it means you're delaying your second lab when you get it free off the event, the warrior I mean. But with Homer in that happy face, hey, you get to build your lab and get your free warriors. That's kind of nice. And then he just grabs an early Code of Laws, which makes perfect sense. Extra actions are good, and it's over to me. On this turn, I honestly struggled quite a bit to figure out what to do. So I'm playing with the Colosseum. This is a wonder that does not need to be rushed. So normally I would just say you gotta build your lab here, but look at the card row. What the hell else am I doing after I build this lab, right? Like there's nothing else to do. In retrospect, I think, there's another problem as well. I'm getting a free warrior. So if I build a lab, it means I'm passing up on a warrior. And a free warrior is 2 rocks and a military action, which, is arguably worth a science. So if I actually get the warrior here, then now I don't know what to do with my rocks. I could, I guess, build a stage of this wonder instead of building a lab, or 2 stages, but I really struggled with what to do. And the problem was compounded by the fact that after I played my scientific breakthrough, I got 2 free rocks. So it's kind of annoying because with 2 free rocks, I can't actually finish the wonder. I'm 1 rock short, so I can't use my actions that way. I can't build a lab because I have this free warrior, and after I raise population, of course, we are unhappy here, so I cannot, if I had built only 1 stage instead of 2 stages, I would have had 3 rocks, but I wouldn't have had the worker left to make the lab with. Looking back, maybe the right thing would have just been to pass up on this warrior and build a lab in the first stage for my 5 rocks, and hope that another rock comes out from the event so that I can finish the Colosseum the following turn. That maybe would have been the smartest thing to do, but as it is, I just wasn't sure how to spend my actions. So what I did was I built 2 stages of the wonder, then I grabbed Jan Žižka and raised population, going pretty early into consumption, just to have something to do. Looking back, maybe what I could have done is taken Jan and Knights, because, you want the Knights with Jan, since that's where a lot of the power comes from, is being able to do them with the medieval army or the phalanx. That would have been 4 of my 5 actions. But then with my 5th, I could have built a stage of the Colosseum, and it would have just barely gotten me out of corruption. This middle stage is 1 rock, so it's not getting me out of corruption. So I would have been just out of corruption, building only 1 stage, and I would have gotten these very important Knights. But as it is, I took Jan and just passed on my last action. I don't want theocracy. So it was just it. Very awkward turn here, and I'm not 100% sure I made the right one, but the good news is that I do get the phalanx. Unfortunately, I don't have the Knights, so now I have to wait for one of the other copies of Knights to show up. There are 3 copies, but it would have been nice to already have it in hand, considering that my turn was so weak. Spending 3 actions to take Knights might have actually been reasonable there. Comont flips up Development of Civil Life, so a few things happen on his turn. He gets the free warrior, gets the 2 rocks from Development of Markets, and then he chooses to use his free action to raise his population. Then he hasn't actually got a wonder yet, so he grabs the university. And it's not wrong to take the university. 2 science per turn is great. I would personally have taken Forbidden City here. So it is an extra action to build compared to the university, but it is 1 less rock. And that's, potentially significant, especially if you're playing on 2 mines. And getting, 2 sort of happy faces and an extra action, I think, is actually better than getting the 2 science. Because with the extra action, you can potentially make up some other science or do other things, and it's also means that you don't have to worry about your happy face solution for quite as long. So that would have been my preference if I were taking one of these AJ Wonders. But he grabs the university, and he could still build, by the way, just so we're clear. He could just build another mine and, do it now. And accept that this urban growth was a wasted rock last time, but he does not. He uses 1 urban growth to build a lab with the free warrior from the event. Notice he doesn't have any workers to spare for this mine. Who needs mines? He raises his population and grabs the bread and circuses. I am not a fan of this bread and circus grab. So in this game, we don't have Pierre, so there isn't that extra smidge of value from bread and circus. And early game, Happy Face solution is not like that big of a priority, because if you build the Bread and Circus, that uses up this worker, so you're not getting to use this worker somewhere else. It's not relevant until you get all the way through your yellow bank, which is usually going to be at the end of age 1, or maybe not even until the start of age 2 when 2 workers drop out. This is really early to be worrying about this. I would personally have preferred either taking Michelangelo, which, okay, granted, is not the best leader in this circumstance, because this is not a Happy Face granting wonder, and you don't have any rocks to help build other wonders with, or just building the first stage of the university. It's a 3/3/3 wonder, and there are rocks here. You could just build the first stage and get ahead on your actions. That would have been my preference over the Bread and Circus. So Antoine's up. He plays an event, and this is really complicated now because there's a queue of 4 events here. We get 2 free science. Luckily, that doesn't add to the complexity of the turn, but he gets a free warrior, chooses 2 rocks from the markets, chooses to raise population from civil life, same exact stuff that Common did. And now he decides to go all in. He makes another warrior for 2 rocks, drops a legion down to get an early strength lead. Thanks to the events, he still has the rocks left to finish the pyramids. So what I was talking about of building the lab last turn and finishing the pyramids this turn, it would have stopped him from getting a legion up and running, which I would have accepted. I would rather have the science than this early, very speculative strength that may or may not actually be useful for anything. And then he puts Machu Picchu under construction for 3 actions, and I definitely don't like that move. As I've said before, Machu Picchu, even under the best of circumstances, I just often leaves me underwhelmed, and especially here where it's super early and you still have to get your iron and irrigation online, it just constrains your play throughout age 1. You're just like forced to get iron and irrigation and try to get them online, which is a little bit challenging because you also are low on science. And if there's any other tech you want to research, forget about it. And you still have to find time to upgrade your mines and your farm and build the wonder. Like, I just don't like being constrained. Here for 3 actions, I mean, nothing super amazing, but hell, I would take alchemy for 3 actions over Machu Picchu to build my economy that way, especially because I have science saved up and I could research it and upgrade this lab. Or take knights and frugality. Knights and 2 free food, it's fine. Here, of course, you're committing to the legion, so maybe the knights make less sense. But again, I'm not saying alchemy is a great move for 3 actions. I would just do it over Machu Picchu. If you don't want to spend 3 actions, you can take like 2 food and printing press, for example, and have your second lab be a printing press. You could do that game. You could take reserves and frugality. You could take drama and printing press to get ready for Shakespeare, or drama and frugality to prepare for just Bach. I mean, I would do almost anything here over this Machu Picchu. But he does end up getting a lot of rocks and food with it, so, you know, choose your own pace. Find the drum that you like and march to it. All right, How You Doing is up, and I was really waiting to see if he would take these knights from me. He plays an event. We get a bunch of free stuff. So for his gaggle of free things, he gets 2 food from the development of markets and raises population from the development of civil life. So he essentially uses those 2 events to get a free worker increase. He then builds a warrior, which Homer, look at that quality leader, gives him a 1 rock discount on. He plays the Code of Laws, builds a stage of the Colossus, grabs Michelangelo, which makes sense. There's no other leader here. And Homer, you need to replace your leader quickly. Sometimes you can end up in trouble if all the other leaders are on the bottom of the deck. You miss out on cementing your free Happy Face. Also, Michelangelo will be giving a point for this Happy Face, so it's fine. Maybe not the greatest without the rocks. You're not as in a good of a position to take advantage of Michelangelo's wonder building thing, but okay, you can prioritize iron, making sure you have the rocks. I like Michelangelo a lot, so I'm happy with this grab here. And then he grabs the reserves. So I was really happy to see this because it means that I get to take knights. Now, I don't think this is necessarily a mistake because he does have 5 actions with the Code of Laws, so using a lot of actions to get 2 rocks or 2 food is not necessarily a bad thing. Personally, in his shoes, I think I would have taken the knights and the frugality, but he did build 3 warriors. He is gearing up to copy this legion once it becomes available the following turn. So the knights are kind of inconsistent with that. So then you're doing like frugality or drama or frugality or printing press or something like this. And yeah, maybe you can just say, screw it. Instead of getting the 2 food, I'd rather get the 2 rocks and just call it a day. So on my turn, I was really happy now that having drawn the Phalanx and taken Jan von Shish Kebab, I get the Knights. So I finished the Colosseum, which is, oh yeah, that's fine, because, hang on a second, did I do something? Right, right. With development of civil life, I build my second lab as a free action. There we go. And then I have enough rocks to finish the Colosseum as well. So now I have 4 actions left, and what to do? Well, there are some gimmies here. Obviously, I take the knights for my phalanx with Jan, and I raise my population. Now, at this point, you could consider taking frugality here because you really, really, really want 2 workers on your knights to get 2 copies of the phalanx with Jan Shishka. It's what you would really like to do, and getting extra food makes it easier to pull these workers out. So that is a consideration. Then the other card you're taking is a bit underwhelming. I decided to instead just focus on my economy and grab alchemy, even if it means riding just 1 knight for a while. I also play the fighting band, and I think that might have been a mistake. So I'm spending a military action, I'm giving up a draw to get 1 strength temporarily. I am going to replace it with the phalanx. I'm putting this into the pool for people who might want to use it. Granted, that's not as big of a deal because Antoine's already added the Legion to the pool, so that's not a consideration. But I just don't think I get much for this 1 strength. Basically, it means that on Comont's turn, I am ahead of him on strength. But on Comont's turn, there's still an Age A event in here. And after Comont's turn, I'm ahead of him on tie breaks. Now, granted, if Comont decides to build a warrior or something, then he will get ahead of me. Or if he has a fighting band in his hand, he will get ahead of me. So this is like, okay, well, just in case he has the other copy of fighting band, because there are 2, then I don't want to be losing on tie breaks in case some bad events get flipped. Maybe that is worth a card draw. Maybe it's not. I'm not 100% sure. But I played it, and that was my turn. Thanks to the Colosseum, I still get a card. It's a crap card, but I still get one, so that's kind of cool. And then it's over to Comont. He plays an event. We get free food, which is really good. I was very happy to see this because I do want to get an extra worker out, and that means I can do it immediately. So that was a very lucky flip for me, though, of course, everybody also gets 2 food, and I'm sure it was a lucky flip for everybody in that sense as well. Comont builds the university on 2 mines using that engineering genius that he got in the draft. He then grabs urban growth and passes the turn. Notice that he did not have a free worker to make a mine with, or any rocks to make the mine with, so he is using up all of his workers and just playing on 2 mines. But his hand is full of crap, so I'm not loving his situation here, even though he does have very early 4 science. Antoine is up. Grabs the iron, which you have to do here. If you're going to take Machu Picchu, you must absolutely take iron here. You don't want to dick around with that. He then researches iron, upgrades a mine, and upgrades another mine. Very good, clean turn. You might say, well, maybe delay the mine upgrade to grab alchemy, but if you do that, you're with Machu Picchu, so you're going to have irrigation, iron, and alchemy. Even on low science, it's kind of unappealing to have all 3 Age 1 economy techs. So I kind of understand just like delaying getting a science tech. But of course, if you're like, you know what, screw it, I just need science, I'm low on science, and alchemy's right here, you can delay a mine for that, that's totally fine. I would do this myself, because you need these rocks to build Machu Picchu, which is expensive. It's a 9 rock wonder. Some Age 1 wonders are 8, there's even Silk Road, which is only 7, so 9 is on the upper end. It's the maximum of what an Age 1 wonder can cost, and every extra rock counts, so I do like just getting that iron mine built, even though it means playing on low science. Alright, How You Doing is up. He plays an event, and it is Develop Territory. Comont wins it, because, we all take a stab at it, but Comont is the one who has the worker and 2 defense cards. How You Doing finishes the Colossus, 1 step late for that colony with a colonization bonus, raises population, builds a 4th warrior, plays Michelangelo, and grabs urban growth and alchemy. Now, the 4th warrior here is a little interesting. This does mean he can copy my fighting band and get 2 strength, but he also could have just copied Antoine's Legion and gotten 2 strength. So I would have preferred not to commit this extra worker here. We are getting a little close to the end of the age, and we're about to have unhappiness here. He is going to be getting a food thanks to the free food event. He will be able to raise population next turn, but that worker is going to be unhappy. Whereas if you don't make this worker into a warrior, you actually do get a legitimate extra worker to use somewhere. Now, granted, what would you use it on? You already have all your stuff. Unless you're building some other type of urban building, it's maybe not the most useful thing. But I would have preferred just to use the Legion here instead of committing 4 workers to warriors. As we'll see, though, How You Doing does make it work. It is possible that he was already thinking about building the Great Wall here off the back of Michelangelo. His rocks are a little low, obviously, but he did take this reserves earlier, so maybe he can actually pull that off, and maybe that's why he committed this warrior here. Also, I'll mention he didn't take swordsman. I would have preferred the swordsman and like upgraded my warriors to have an option to get 3 strength. If you're building a warrior, it seems even more appealing to have swordsman to have the option to get 4 extra strength later in the game. So on my turn, I had a pretty of a tricky turn here as well. So the swordsmen are here, but I already took knights. I don't want both knights and swordsmen. With the Colosseum, it feels like a bit of a waste. You want to use the discount on at least one of these technologies being H2. Maybe it would have been correct just to take swordsmen and just to have it, as we'll see. But in any case, I build the alchemy. I upgrade 1 mine. That's all I can do. I raise population, and now I have 2 actions to kill and not much to do with them. There's a few options. You could take Engineering Genius sort of speculatively. You can take a rich land, because eventually I got to do either irrigation or iron, right? You could take irrigation itself to improve your food economy. I decide to grab the cultural heritage and patriotism, so I'm sort of aggressively using Hammurabi's extra action here to take yellow cards that give me resources. These are not the most valuable ones ever, but next turn I will be able to get iron. And then with patriotism, I can actually make 2 knights. Got to be a little careful because then, of course, I am going to be revolting soon here when age 2 ends. I'm not 100% sure that this was the right call, but that's what I decided to do. So we're over to Caumont. Caumont researches the bread and circuses, which I believe is just a stone cold mistake. Now, when you look at this turn, it seems like he's doing it to clear out space in his hand, because he's picking up swordsmen, and because of the hand limit, he wouldn't have been able to do this if bread and circuses were still in his hand. But watch the rest of the turn. He now researches the swordsman, plays that patriotism he drafted, and then with the extra rock and his 2 rocks that he makes per turn, he makes a swordsman. So he could have just played the patriotism first, then taken swordsman and researched it and built the sword and had 1 action left over here with bread and circuses still in his hand. He doesn't need to make a bread or a circus. He's actually gotten a colony, which gave him an extra yellow token. So he's doing great on yellow tokens. I mean, he's still got miles to go before he sleeps on these. So there's no need to research the bread and circuses here. And I mean, he had stuff to do. He's got 6 foods stocked up and he's making 2 per turn. So he could have like made a worker. That would have been fine. Grabbing alchemy would have been fine. Grabbing irrigation would have been fine. Even grabbing a rich land, which is like maybe my 3rd choice here, would have been fine. But that's still 3 choices that are better than researching this technology that does nothing. So a little bit of a misstep here from Caumont, but he does have a fighting band, or he copies mine and goes ahead of me. So now I'm holding my breath because I am the weakest player here. And Antoine does play an event, and it is just new deposits, which is totally fine. So I dodge a bullet on that one. He now builds Machu Picchu and is generating a very impressive 8 rocks per turn, 6 from his mines, plus, well, 2, 4, 5, no, 2, 4, 6, 7 from his mines, and 1 from Isabella. So, or you could say, I guess, 5 from his mines, 2 from his wonder, 1 from Isabella. I don't know why I'm splitting hairs about this. And now he's got 2 actions left and a whole bunch of food saved up. But he has to take irrigation. He has to, because if you don't, you know, maybe this other copy gets snapped up and then you're left with that irrigation for your Machu Picchu. And then he raises population just to get ahead of his actions. Makes perfect sense. You could also develop a mine here. But this is playing around rats a little bit in case somebody snuck that in, and you're making 8 rocks per turn. You have more rocks than you can possibly spend, so rushing that last mine in this particular case, just to maybe get a bit of security against the rats, is totally fine, I think. All right, so How You Doing is up. He plays an event, and it's another colony. So I did dodge 2 bullets here. There were 2 chances here I could have gotten hit by a strength-based event, and neither came to pass. Antoine wins this one, committing a worker, a few of his giant stockpile of rocks. Isabella's amazing here because he has so many rocks. Spending them to win colonies is like about the best thing he could possibly hope for. How You Doing plays alchemy, upgrades 1 lab cheaply, grabs Engineering Genius because I do think maybe he had his eyes on that Great Wall, upgrades the other lab, and then also copies my fighting band, which maybe I shouldn't have played. Now everybody besides me is using it for 2 extra strength, and then raises population. He could have also copied Legion for 2 strength. That would have been sort of the same, but I do think fighting band is more precise because this lets you sacrifice 2 workers to win a colony and get an extra bonus, whereas with Legion you have to commit 3. So I think this is the correct way to do it. And then he passes the turn. I admire his restraint here. Some people would be like, oh, I have Michelangelo, let's take St. Peter's. But the thing is, even with Engineering Genius and Michelangelo's rock bonus, it's still a bit of a project, and all it's really doing is giving you happy faces and a bit of culture. Waiting for the Great Wall is the correct thing to do. So he passes the turn here, and it is over to me. So I play an event. I don't know. Oh, I did it because Antoine won a colony. So since Antoine won a colony, I played an event because now I'm not the weakest, and then the Reign of Terror hit. So Antoine, I admit, got pretty unlucky. This could have hit on either of the two previous flips, and then I would have lost one of these workers. And it really would have set me back because I'm ready to build 2 knights. So if I lose one, then I don't get to build 2 knights. And as we'll see, this has kind of a snowballing effect here. Since I don't lose a worker, I can upgrade a mine, or upgrade a lab, research the knights, play patriotism, and with exactly 6 rocks, make 2 horses. I also take the Code of Laws. I replace my leader because it's getting kind of close. And then there's my second horse. So now I'm doing the classic Jan von Shish Kebab thing with a phalanx and 2 copies of it, because these 2 farms are counting as 2 more warriors to go with this other knight for a total of suddenly 6 extra strength. Now, Jan is only giving me 3 of that, so I'd still be at 9, which is nice, but at 12, it's like I can almost do an aggression on anybody, and I do have this raid. If I didn't have this raid, I probably wouldn't have done this, but since I have it, I know I can probably get 2 rocks back by raiding somebody, and I feel that feels worth it to me. I also grabbed the reserves here. And looking back, I think I made the correct choice. Richland is obviously tempting because clearly I'll probably take, some sort of mining technology at some point. But I actually want this to have the option of getting food with it because I am about to be revolting. So if I use this for the food and then pop a worker out, that worker can be unhappy and I can leave my army as is without having to do something to gut my civilization to stave off revolt. Note, the happy face from Colosseum and the military action for the extra draws and military plays has been really useful here. Caumont plays an event. We get the barbarians and Antoine loses another population. So that hurts. That really stings. And when I said Antoine, well, got great things from spending rocks to win colonies, there was a risk to that, of course, which is that in the temporary intermediate area where Antoine is the weakest after having won the colony, but before rebuilding his army, he is at risk of these events, and 2 of them hit, so he loses 2 workers. This game takes a dark turn for Antoine. Caumont raises population twice, and with this extra worker, he builds his 3rd mine finally. Just kidding! He makes a sword. And then he builds bread and circus that he doesn't need. And then he grabs a cartography, which he definitely doesn't need. So I don't know. I would have definitely raised population here. But maybe he did this sort of thing because he's worried about me aggressing on him. The problem is that at 7 strength, I'm still guaranteed to do an aggression against him. Because even if both cards are defense cards, it's only going to bring him up to 11. So it doesn't actually stop anything. I would have just built the mine this turn instead of building the bread and circus. Oh, and raise population. He draws 1 card. Antoine is up. Antoine's like, oh lord, what is happening to me? He plays an event. It's my scientific breakthrough. Everybody but Antoine gets a bunch of science. So poor Antoine is really getting hit hard here. He loses both of his spare workers. But okay, he's got food, so he gets 1 back. He makes a warrior with it, gets his legion up and running. He then puts St. Peter's under construction and upgrades the last mine. And I do think this is a mistake. The St. Peter's, yes, you have a lot of rocks and not much to do with them. And building a wonder is nice. And yes, this will fix your happy faces for the whole game and get you going on culture, and that's all great. But the thing is, now is not the time to be building a culture wonder and one that gives you happy faces, because you got to get your irrigation going. You need to try to fix your science. There's a breakthrough here for 2 science, which you really, really desperately need. I think that this is just not a position you're in where you can afford the luxury of spending a bunch of actions to build a culture wonder. Plus, we're near the end of Age 1. There's some good wonders coming in Age 2, or at least some decent wonders. He has won some colonies, so Suez Canal might be good. Harvard College could be good for extra science. If he can get an H2 government, this could be fine. The Kremlin is all right. He's, got some extra workers in his bank, so maybe he could deal with the happy face. Having the option of getting one of those nice H2 wonders, I think, is worth passing on St. Peter's, especially because he has more pressing priorities here. So he passes the turn. How you doing is up. He plays an event. We get a wealthy territory, and I try to win it, but he gets it with his colonization bonus, perhaps, and just chucks 1 warrior at it. Maybe he would have spent 2 if I had bid harder. He rebuilds that warrior, grabs the irrigation, researches it, upgrades a farm, grabs drama to get ready for Bach, potentially, and the breakthrough that Antoine left for him, and then he passes the turn. And on my turn, I have an interesting decision here. I do have this raid, and I can target anybody. Who do I target? So I felt like the best player at the moment was How You Doing. He doesn't have rock production, but he does have a bunch of rocks saved up. He is working on this Great Wall, so he has... Or is he working on it yet? Oh, he's actually not working on it yet. So I don't think I was thinking about him having a Great Wall. But he has a bunch of rocks saved up. Good science. Decent-ish army. And he's ready to potentially get some culture. But there is a tiny, tiny chance that both of these are defense cards. And if they are both defense cards, I'm going to really regret that I went after this alchemy. This is the best target for a raid. Antoine only has one lab, and Coman only has these cheap buildings. This building's only worth 3 rocks, so either way I'm only getting 2 rocks if I hit Coman or Antoine, and if I get How You Doing, then I get 3 rocks. And I also blow up a more valuable building that he spent 6 rocks building. But I was like, you know what? On the off chance that he actually has 2 defense cards, I don't want to throw 2 rocks away because I am low on rocks and I need those rocks. I maybe should have gone after Coman, but he was playing so weird with this 2 mine thing. I was like, I'm not as worried about this player, so I went after Antoine. I do think that was a mistake. I mean, Coman does have a bunch of science saved up. He's ready for an H2 government. And yes, it's weird that he only played with 2 mines for the whole of Age 1 and did some other weird stuff, but he is in a stronger position. Whereas Antoine just lost 2 workers and, you know, has just been hit really hard. But he also has a bunch of rocks saved up. He's got a bunch of food saved up. Maybe he can fix a civilization in H2. I don't know. I decided to raid Antoine's last building, leaving him with a very bleak civilization, and it's my turn. So on this turn, I think I have a relatively easy turn. I'm obviously going to get the Code of Laws down for the extra action. I play the reserves for 2 food, get my worker out. I build a temple. I don't remember if I just did this to get out of corruption or because I put a rebellion in and I was worried about losing actions. And then I, of course, grab this breakthrough and pass the turn. Note the frugality is not helpful because the age is going to end. I'm going to be sitting here on 2 food. So the frugality, I mean, I'm counting on somebody to have put the food, the harvest thing in here for extra food. If they didn't, then I'm just sitting here with a stupid frugality and 2 food. So the science makes sense. And then over the frugality, I would have, like, you know, just... done cultural heritage, maybe, if I wasn't building this temple to get out of corruption. I don't draw an aggression, unfortunately. Even with Jan's extra action and the Colosseum, I don't draw an extra action, or I don't draw an aggression, but the Good Harvest does get flipped, which is nice for me. It means I'll get an extra worker out, and I won't have 2 blue tokens, making me corrupt sitting on my farms. Coman grabs Saladin, his last chance to replace his leader without losing an action. Remember this, by the way. Spending 2 actions to take a leader is the same as waiting for it to get to the 1 row and then putting it over a blank spot. Because if you lose your AJ leader because the age ends, then it takes 2 actions to take and play the leader versus spending 2 actions to take him and then 0 to play him. So this is the correct thing to do. He raises population, builds another warrior, gets another fighting band, gets to the point where he can actually defend against me, and then he also does the cartography, so he's actually doing quite well on strength, and then he passes the turn, choosing an extra action for Saladin. Antoine offers me a naval trade agreement. Antoine is like the king of weird pact offers. I don't know what this is or why he thought I would take it or why I'd want to have +1 colonization and have 1 less blue token. I don't know what he was thinking, but I reject that. I don't want to give him 2 blue tokens. I didn't put any colonies in here. I mean, if you're going to offer this to somebody, I don't know if it's correct, by the way, but if you are, I would offer it to How You Doing because he already has 1 colonization and he's won a colony, so maybe he put more in there. I would also consider switching this. I actually would have taken this if he had switched the offer, because I would like to have 2 blue tokens, and then you can give yourself +1 colonization. You are Isabella, so you can maybe lose a blue token. Granted, you have a bunch of food saved up, so it could be like potentially a problem here, so maybe just offering How You Doing, the side where you get 2 blue tokens, makes more sense. But I think the combination of elements going on here with who he chose to give it to and what he chose to offer made it very unlikely to be accepted, but he YOLO'd it. It didn't happen. He grabs the swordsman, which gives him a chance to get 3 extra strength. Because he only has 2 military actions, though, he can only get 2 strength now, so I could still aggress him at will. Luckily for him, I didn't draw any more aggressions. He then builds back the lab that I broke and raises his population. He's now corrupt, and look at St. Peter's sitting here going unbuilt because he has other things he needs to be doing, like using up his food. How You Doing is up. He grabs the iron, last chance to get it. Okay, not the last chance, there's another one coming here, but he grabs it now, researches it, upgrades a mine, upgrades another mine. Good clean turn. He's got a lot of warriors, so going after knights now might be a bit inconsistent, and this just fixes up his rocks. He now has an age 1 economy. That's the one kind of downside, is eventually this is going to run out of steam, but for the moment, good clean stuff. I like it, and it's over to me. Unfortunately, no aggression is in my hand. So I chuck an event in there. We get a foray, which is good. Since I got 2 food from the harvest, I actually am able to raise my population without having to use the foray for food. And you know what? I believe I put this in. So actually, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should have known that I was going to have 2 food and be able to get more from the foray. So maybe I should have actually taken the frugality last turn since... Oh, no, but right. No, even if I can raise population, the frugality is stupid because then I just have 2 food doing nothing. Never mind. Forget that I said that. Okay, so I raise population. I have a nice clean setup here where I actually dug 2 workers deep into my bank, which is nice to get that out when you're low on food. And I have 8 rocks saved up. What do I do with them? I considered getting the Great Wall because that would give me 2 extra strength and a happy face for an extra worker. It sort of works. The problem is corruption. I could not take this and get out of corruption very easily. If I do take it and then build a temple, 8 minus 3 is 5, and 5 plus 3 is 8, which is 1 rock short of building it. If this cost 8, or if I had 9 next turn, I actually might have considered going the temple Great Wall plan. As it is, I have to consider whether I want to take theology, because that would, give me an extra worker. It's age 2, though. I decided to be greedy. A good option now is better than the best option later, so maybe it would have been right to take this, but I decided to just wait on the hep faces. Now, I also don't take masonry here. Psychologically, it feels bad taking masonry because I've already built 2 labs. Maybe it still would have been correct just to do it because I kind of have nothing to do here. What I decide on is I grab monarchy, which, it is age 2, and I have a decent amount of science. I could just wait for an age 2 government. So this is where I decide to take something now instead of waiting for something better. I don't know if that was the correct decision, but I take it, I research it. I still have 2 actions left. I need to get rid of corruption, so I built another temple, which is really weird, but it is giving me some culture. It is setting me up for organized religion later, or maybe Bach, so the temples are not maybe totally useless. And then I just grab this rich land because at some point I'm probably going to take, coal or selective breeding, or hopefully both of them, and then this will help me get those upgrades in. Kind of sitting on this cultural heritage here, but okay, maybe later I got 6 actions per turn, I'll be able to use it up. Caumont plays an event. It is an aggression that I wish I had. He plunders Antoine, the whipping boy of this game. Antoine didn't have any defense cards, apparently. So if he had 1, he could have defended, but Caumont went for it and is paid off with 3 rocks, which is great when you have no mines. He raises population, and finally, now that we're in H2, he builds his 3rd mine. Just kidding. He still doesn't do it. Oh my god. I don't know, man. I don't know. I would have built a mine here. I would have built a mine. But he's actually going to end up using both of these workers for other things and use iron with 4 rocks per turn to kind of just play the game that way. I don't get it, man. It's not my style. I don't think it works out very well for him, as we'll see in this game. So I don't agree with it. But he does have 6 actions, and his military is pretty good. So, he doesn't have 6. He now uses Saladin, I believe, if I remember this correctly. Yeah, he upgrades his warriors. Yeah, he uses Saladin to get 4 strength, or 2 strength, so he loses an action. But he's now the strength leader, so any strength events coming up, he's going to be able to get them. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at where we're at now that we have reached the end of the round, and we're in age 2. So, in this spot, I think the person in the best position is how you doing. So culture, yes, I'm kind of in the lead, but this is not like any kind of game-winning amount of culture generation. Science, we're all fine. Caumont has the most saved up, but bro's playing on 2 rocks. How you doing has good rocks. He's fixed his science. He has irrigation, so for the short term anyway, he is doing okay on food. He did get the iron up and running with Michelangelo, so he is ready to rock and roll with some good wonders. There's a great wall here with an engineering genius that'll give him 4 strength, so he's got no issues with happy faces, no issues with corruption or anything like that. I think he's in the best spot to win the game at this point. Obviously, Antoine, well, we know what happened to Antoine. Antoine's got it rough, but Antoine did himself no favors putting this wonder under construction. Now, this is a monkey on his back. He still has all this food to get rid of. His science production's in the pits, and he still hasn't gotten irrigation for Machu Picchu. So I think that Antoine is in the worst position, shockingly, even though Caumont is doing this, having upgraded none of his age. Okay, that's not true. He has upgraded his science. This is equivalent, thanks to the university, to having built 2 alchemy, so he's doing okay, I think, but he hasn't upgraded his production technology yet. He's been playing on 2 mines and doesn't really have much to show for his choices other than just a 5th action from Monarchy. Okay, Antoine is up. Offers a naval trade agreement to How You Doing. Same thing. Antoine's trying to get the 2 blue tokens. How You Doing accepts, and I think How You Doing would have accepted last time as well because he's already got the 1 colonization from the Colossus, and now getting a second one, makes him pretty good at getting colonies. So Antoine now decides to build the St. Peter's Basilica, research irrigation, and upgrade this farm, just barely thanks to the 2 blue tokens from that pact getting out of corruption. So he gets his food online. He upgrades a warrior to be a little bit safer, and then passes the turn. How You Doing is up. He grabs the Republic, which just landed here. It was the 4th card in the deck. He's got just enough science to get it, so I was very rattled, because now he's fixed his actions. He just needs to fix his military actions at some point, and then he's really off to the races. He raises population, grabs the Great Wall, which he can't quite build. He has enough rocks to build it, but he doesn't have the actions to build it. It costs 4 actions. Now, he did do this, increase his population. I don't know why. Maybe this was a mistake. He could have just taken the Great Wall, and instead of raising population, he could have just built it, and the Happy Face would have stopped this revolt. I think maybe this was actually a mistake, and he just thought, oh, I'm revolting, gotta raise population to fix it. But building the Great Wall now would have fixed it. So I do think he messes up a little bit there. But okay, he gets to do something else instead. He raises population again, builds a stage, and then upgrades the farm. Interesting, he didn't choose to upgrade his mine. He could have done it and still built the Great Wall next time, but he goes for the food first, which makes sense. He's at 0, so going up to 2 now means that in 2 turns he'll get another worker, and then he passes the turn. So on my end, I sadly still have no aggressions to play. I chuck an event in there. It's the Cold War, and the Rebellion flips. I can't remember if I put this in or not. Hugh does get hit for it. He has 2 unhappy workers, and he dug his own grave there. If he had just built a Great Wall, he would have had 0, but instead he raised population twice and gave himself 2. But on the other hand, he has 8 civil actions, so he actually still gets a decent turn, even though he lost 4 actions. This was, however, entirely avoidable. I grab Selective Breeding. I do not want to dick around. I research it. I upgrade once, and I could actually upgrade again, or just wait and get a worker every other turn. I don't currently need a worker for anything. And there is a consideration for not getting this other upgrade. The reason for that is that James Watt is in the game. I need coal. I mean, I could play on 3 mines, but it would be nice to get coal, and James Watt makes it easier to do that. So if I'm going to get Watt, it would make this other upgrade cheaper. But that's far in the distance. I think I made a decent choice here just to say, screw it. Let's just get the thing going now, get it fixed, have my food production online, and then get workers immediately. I have an extra action left over, which is great. I can take 3 rocks here and then pass the turn. Colmont is up. He researches iron, and he upgrades a mine, grabs Selective Breeding, which he does need as well, upgrades the other mine, so it was a building turn for him, fixing his economy, all good stuff. Keeps the strength from Saladin, and it's over to Antoine. Antoine plays an event. We get the Pestilence, which hurts a bit. Antoine does have a worker to lose. How You Doing has a worker to lose. I don't, so it kind of sucks for me. And Colmont has a worker to lose. Now, it is a good thing I upgraded that Selective Breeding. If I had waited for James Watt, I would not have been able to rebuild my worker. As it is, I can just lose a worker, like a warrior, raise population critically because I did this upgrade, and then build it back. So that is a good thing about having gotten the Selective Breeding done that turn. So we got some population increases, a swordsman, a lab, another farm upgrade, and then the horses, which he does need to fix his military at some point. He resists the allure of Cook. This would have been 2 culture per turn, but the extra blue tokens are pretty nice from Isabella, and the extra rocks are maybe also nice if he can find something to spend them on pretty soon, and then he passes the turn. It would have been difficult for him to grab Harvard here for his entire turn. That's the thing about the St. Peter's Basilica. Even if he finishes it on time, it's still hard for him to use these rocks because now other wonders take more actions to put into construction. How You Doing? I was very sad to see, even after losing half his actions, still gets to finish the Great Wall now, so I'm not going to be doing any aggressions against him. He upgrades his last mine as well, builds another warrior, which I'm not sure he needs. This is kind of a weird move, but it does give him 2 strength, so now he's tied for the lead, which is unfortunate because I put a Cold War in there, and I'm actually not winning it at the moment, so I was a little bit nervous about it. I play an event anyway. Uncertain Borders flips up. I don't know if I put this in. I would have won it a couple of turns ago, but this is one time where I don't get lucky. So Antoine, the whipping boy, loses a yellow token from his bank, and then Colmont breaks ties against How You Doing and steals that yellow token. So I really thought about getting Harvard here, because it would be nice to get some more science, but I just don't have the rocks, and I don't like undertaking these long projects. I also thought about taking James Watt, because it would be nice to have him in preparation for coal. He's up pretty early, but I didn't think my opponents were going to want him, because, I mean, we got iron here, we got iron here, we got iron here, and these people also have irrigation. So taking Watt just for selective breeding feels odd. I felt like he would probably wheel to me. The question then is, what do I do with my actual turn? Could take navigation. Some people are seemingly playing with colonies here, but I decided not to screw around with that because science is a very precious resource and it's going to be very limited very soon. So what I do instead is I raise population, build my warrior back from the pestilence. I grab organized religion now. It's not like a super high priority or anything, but I mean, I do need eventually to fix my happy faces, and I got nothing to do right now, so this is maybe the time. I take the rich land because I'll need it eventually, and then I play the cultural heritage. Like, well, I got an extraction sitting around. Let's do it. I think that was a mistake. I think I should have taken Wave of Nationalism because this is 4 rocks for 2 actions, which is pretty good. And it might even be 6, as we shall see. So I think I could have held on to this and either played it later or never played it at all and gotten this Wave of Nationalism. Even though I have Patriotism, as we'll see, this wave would actually have been helpful. I'm only on 3 rocks, so extra rocks, anything I can get is a big deal. Now, of course, I have all these aggressions, but I cannot target anybody with them anymore, which is very sad. Caumont does another shot on Antoine. Antoine would need to have Antoine would need to have an Age 2 defense card. So I think it's correct to take a shot here because it's not that likely. And Caumont gets paid with plunder number 2 against Antoine, stealing 5 rocks. Antoine's like, please steal my rocks. I don't need these rocks. I got nothing to do with them. Caumont then grabs the Statue of Liberty, takes Wave of Nationalism when I left for him in a scientific method and passes the turn. Not a huge fan of the Statue of Liberty here. With Monarchy, it's only worth 1 culture. And you got selective breeding online, or not online, but you have, the science and the rocks to get selective breeding online pretty soon. I think it would be better just to spend like 3 actions researching and upgrading your farms than it is to spend, what was that? 2 or 3... 4 actions getting the Statue of Liberty for extra yellow tokens. So I think this is a misstep here. If anything, I would take Harvard College, but he has a bunch of science saved up, so I wouldn't do that either. I would have just done the selective breeding and gotten it out of the way. So Antoine's up. He plays an event. It's cultural influence, pretty much a nothing burger. He raises population twice, builds another sword, trying not to fall behind people, builds a warrior, which now gives him another legion, so Antoine's like, who's the bully now? Huh? Who's the bully now, bitches? And then he grabs scientific method to maybe fix the science at some point, and a breakthrough because he needs science, so a pretty decent turn for him. And I was a little bit worried. I really wanted James Watt, and he almost wheeled off the table. He was 1 slot away from falling off the map. Like, thank God Antoine didn't also take team sports or something. Obviously, he doesn't need it with St. Peter's, but thank goodness, or else I would have actually not gotten a leader that, as we'll see, ends up being extremely helpful. How You Doing plays an event. It's the Confucius card. He grabs team sports himself, researches it, raises population, and just builds one. It's interesting, it doesn't do anything right now. He doesn't actually need these happy faces yet. It's going to be a while till they matter. So it's just 2 strength at the moment. I think that, there were some higher priorities here. As we'll see, he grabs strategy, Bach, and opera, so he's ready to do a culture shift. And yeah, this was a way to spend some rocks, but he wasn't corrupt. And I think that taking cannon here would have been more important. Because he has the Great Wall. That makes cannon an insanely important technology. And right now he's doing fine on strength, but this isn't going to last forever, obviously. His opportunities for raising strength are limited, even after he gets the rifles. Each rifle is 2 strength, so upgrading all these warriors to rifles is 10 strength, 26. That's not going to last the whole game. You're going to need at some point to be able to get cannons, and maybe if not that, also horses, to actually be able to play some higher tier tactics and defend yourself. Now, granted, there are 3 copies of cannon, so maybe he was thinking, let me just get, cannons later. But team sports, getting that online right now is so insignificant that I would have just rather made sure I had the cannon here and not have to worry about it later. All right, so it's my turn. I am the weak link here. I am the weakest. But I get a little bit bailed out because on the tippy top of the deck, or tippy edge of the deck, is Rifleman. Obviously, there's also coal here. But I thought, you know what? I think the coal's going to wheel because everybody got iron except for me. So no one's going to take this coal. I need to take these rifles. I would have taken the coal if the rifles weren't there, but I grabbed the rifles, I researched them, and look at this. I have 1 action left. if this, if the cultural heritage were in my hand, and the wave of nationalism were also from last time, I could have played it, and I could have gotten these upgrades for free. On the other hand, then I would have been corrupt. Okay, I don't know. Maybe the wave of nationalism wasn't that great. Who knows? As it is, I play the patriotism, and then I upgrade, and I have to spend some rocks to get out of corruption. Okay, maybe wave of nationalism actually wasn't that great. It would have had to be like a future kind of thing, since here I would have still been corrupt. But in any case, I just fixed my strength by upgrading warriors to rifles. I'm tied for the leader with how you doing. And it's important because I put a Cold War in there, so I need to, try to get that, because 6 science is a big deal. And Command is up. He does not play an event, but he does take Justice System to fix his actions. That makes perfect sense. He grabs the cannons that were left for him by everybody else, researches them now, grabs Engineering Genius, plays a wave of nationalism that I left for him, and then uses it to make a free cannon. Thankfully, he does not have the fortifications tactic, the 2 swords and a cannon tactic for 6 strength, or 5 extra from the, or 2 extra from the fighting band because he has 2 of them. But he is still a strength leader here, and Antoine's up. He offers this weird pact to Comment. I don't know why he would do that. Also, this doesn't make any sense. Why would Antoine make the extra rock and Comment make 1 less rock? Why would Comment agree to this when Comment is ahead of Antoine on strength? I don't know. I think Antoine's just a joker. This person's probably a real personality at parties. He grabs Maria Theresa, which makes sense. He has tons of food. We're near the end of the age and he needs a leader. He plays her immediately, researches the horses, raises population, and builds a horse. And then he grabs the frugality for some free stuff, and he's like, look at this, Comment. Don't you wish you were making 1 less rock? Look at me now, I got a horse. Her. And he passes the turn. All right, so how you doing's up. Plays an event. It is rats, which, oh, that hits hard. I lose 8 food. I was about to get ready to make 2 workers. I wouldn't change my turn. I had like stuff to do with all my actions, getting Watt, getting the rifles, researching them, and getting the rocks from the patriotism. But damn, that really just hits in a bad way. Antoine, of course, also gets wrecked, but what else is new? While Hudun and Comment are yucking it up. All right, so he did get those team sports, which puts them into position to get a good Kremlin. So maybe that was a justification for getting this online last turn. I think I'd still rather have cannons, even if it means passing on the Kremlin. But okay, you're Michelangelo. You want to get some wonders before the age ends. It's worth considering doing Eiffel Tower instead. It's more culture than the Kremlin. You don't really need any more civil actions. But okay, maybe he's thinking he needs the military action. Personally, I would say if you have strategy, it's 4 military actions. It's obviously not great, but it's enough. I don't think you need to build the Kremlin over the Eiffel Tower for it and have to deal with this happy face issue. Like, it's a 2 happy face swing, getting 1 versus losing 1, and I think that makes the Eiffel Tower the better pick here. But he plays the reserves and just builds the Kremlin now. That is a consideration, to be fair. Eiffel Tower costs 13 rocks, so he wouldn't have been able to build it this turn, whereas the Kremlin did get built this turn. He then also grabs the Eiffel Tower. That, I think, is a bit greedy because you have Bach and Opera, so you don't really want to now be also getting the Eiffel Tower. You've run out of your extra rocks. Like, you had a big stockpile and you built it to build a wonder. That's fine. But now you just need to play Bach, research Opera, and start building operas, not going after this Eiffel Tower, in my opinion. Especially because we're near the end of H2. Grabs some rocks, researches the strategy to fix his military actions. Now I'm very annoyed because I'm no longer the strongest. In fact, I am the weakest now, which is bad because the Cold War is in here. And what the hell do I do? Well, what I do is I research Watt. Cold just barely hung on, so I was counting on it to table, and it just barely did. So I got a little bit lucky again. First Watt, and then Cold. Just barely did not fall off the board. I take the coal, research it. I upgrade 2 coal mines. And then with my last 2 actions, I'm like, well, crap. I can't raise population twice like I would have wanted. So let's grab these cannon, and let's take some free food for the future. And I pass the turn. And so now I am not loving it. It's not McDonald's. I am not loving my situation. I have all these aggressions that I can't use. I could get aggressed upon by my opponents. Luckily, I do have 2 defense cards and just a lot of cards in general. Thank you, Coliseum. So maybe my opponents don't want to, like, YOLO me because I just need 1 defense card. But, I mean, Antoine and Hudun, they could take shots. Hey, maybe he never drew any defense cards. And I'm also at the mercy of the event deck. So something went wrong. I really liked my position coming out of Age 1. I did think How You Doing was doing the best. But now, having ridiculed Antoine and Comment's positions, they're somehow both seemingly doing better than me. Well, Historic Territory comes out. I was really happy that somebody was going to be spending some military. I would hope they would compete with each other, and they do. Comment here has to give up a cannon with a defense card to get that colony and those points. He now builds the Statue of Liberty. Notice selective breeding still not online. So I do think that, he could have gotten it done like 2 turns ago, and that would have been very worthwhile. He researches it, upgrades once, grabs a efficient upgrade, and an urban growth for the future, and passes the turn. This makes sense, by the way. I think holding off that second upgrade is correct because he is here in his food banks. He doesn't need any more food right now. He's doing fine on that. He can still get workers out, and this gives him some more resources, which he needs because his rocks are a little bit low. All right, so Antoine's up, plays an event. It's National Pride, which I put in, which is good because I'm the baby. I'm at the mercy of the event deck, so instead I get something that helps me, which is obviously fantastic. He upgrades a warrior to a sword, plays scientific method, fixes his science twice. He's got 2 actions left. He grabs the cannons, which is correct. He needs to worry about the military, and grabs the constitutional monarchy, which is also fine. It's a bit late for that, but with 6, he could revolt into it, fix all of his actions for the rest of the game, and then he passes the turn. All right, we're nearing the start of Age 3. How You Doing has just a gajillion actions from this Kremlin that I disagreed with. He takes the reserves, the breakthrough, the architecture. He plays reserves for rocks, the old reserves, grabs a revolutionary idea for some science, which he does need, and then he takes an urban growth. So he's just like taking every single yellow card here, and he is ready to play Bach and opera next turn. This turn he didn't have enough science to research opera. I do think that he messed up a little bit here. He should have just played Bach. Now you might say, well, Bach is less culture than Michelangelo. Michelangelo is giving him like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 culture from the Homer thing on the Colossus, whereas Bach is only 2. And he has a gajillion civil actions. But you know what? I found no matter how many civil actions you have in Age 3, it's like you always want more. So I think I would be happy to give up 3 culture in exchange for 1 extra civil action, because next turn when Michelangelo's gone, putting Bach into the whole cost in action, whereas he could have done it for free this turn, I think that would have been worth it personally. All right, so because of all these yellow card grabs, we are hitting Age 3, so we'll take a look at like a status update when it gets back around to Antoine. On my turn, I research organized religion because now I have to fix my revolt. I don't have enough food because of those damn rats to get another worker out. So that has to happen. And what else do I do? Well, it's a little awkward. There's not a whole lot of great stuff here. What I decide to do is upgrade my last mine and take the computers. And this is something I really agonized over in preparing for this video. I don't know how I feel about this computers grab. On the one hand, spoiler alert, I never need them, so this is just sort of a waste of 3 actions. I could have taken efficient upgrade in journalism, which I probably, well, I would have used the efficient upgrade. I probably wouldn't have used the journalism. It might have even been worth taking the horses. I think in retrospect, like knowing what I know now, I would have taken the efficient upgrade and the horses. Horses gives me the option to get any tactic going from H2 or from H3. I'm a little bit behind. Culture-wise, How You Doing's about to get Bach rolling, so even though I have a culture lead, it's going to evaporate really quickly. And being able to play a military game could be very beneficial. So having the option with the horse and the efficient upgrade to upgrade my final temple for almost free and fix my happy faces when we start getting down into the yellow banks would have, I think, been very helpful. At the time, though, I was thinking, okay, computers, this is a game where literally every science leader is here. Sid, Einstein, Jobs, and Marie Curie. So I need a new leader. I'm Watt. I've gotten all my upgrades. I'm not doing anything with this guy. I want to replace him ASAP. So if anybody comes up, I'm ready to grab him, build a bunch of labs, and try to win a culture game. So that's what I was thinking. And maybe that is still the correct thing to do, just because the outcome is that I never use the computers doesn't mean that it was wrong to do it here from like an expected value standpoint. So it was a tough turn here. That's what I decided to do with kind of a dry board. And we're over to Caumont. Now, notably, I draw with my first 3 military actions of H3 a war over culture right away. Caumont grabs Nobel, who is amazing for him, giving him science and strength. He also grabs efficient upgrade, raises population, builds back his cannon that he got with the colony, still doesn't have a tactic for it, thankfully, and then he passes the turn. And now, since this has been going on for a little long, I'm gonna do a little bit of a status update on Age 3, and then we're going to hit the pause button here for just a second. So what is, okay, Antoine kicks off Age 3 with the acceptance of supremacy. I don't know, I mean, this actually makes sense. I am behind on strength, but still, like, bro, I'm not gonna throw away a rock just so that you specifically can't attack me. This pact is just stupid. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody just accept this in any way. But Antoine, thank you for offering it twice in one game so we could see the card. That is already kind of a delight. Anyhoodle, let's take a look at what's happening here in Age 3. So in H3, Antoine has great science and rocks. I mean, he got beat the hell up this game, so honestly, he's doing all right, that being considered. But even with Machu Picchu, he's really deep in his yellow banks. He's not able to raise a population. He has a bit of a revolt problem here. His army's kind of clunky and inefficient with all these swords, and he hasn't fixed his actions. So I would not say that Antoine's in the best position, even though he does have this strength lead. He has no military actions with which to press the strength lead. How You Doing, I believe, is the favorite to win here. He has a gajillion actions. His military actions are fixed thanks to Kremlin and strategy, even though he has a republic, which with only 2. He's about to get Bach and operas rolling and just go nuts. Now, he's not like running away with it. He does have a worker issue because he committed all these workers to warriors. He's not making enough food. Irrigation's run out. It's only making 1 food per turn. So the workers are going to be a little bit of an issue to actually get enough operas. But he does have the Eiffel Tower, which I also ridiculed, and he can build it. So if he can build that and get an opera going with Bach, he's going to get a ton of culture, immediately basically make up this tiny gap that is between me and him with Michelangelo through age 2. He's gotten a decent amount of culture. Science is good. Rocks are good. Rocks are stockpiled. So, and obviously the action situation lets him, potentially use actions to make up his shortcomings on rocks and or food and or science. So I think he's the clear favorite to win here. I think he's played the most clean, solid game of anybody here. Remember, he's the wild card who is unrated, and I don't know. His rating might be, his strength might be as high as mine, just if we compare how we've both played the game so far. I have made fun of Caumont a lot, but, I don't think he's the favorite here. He's doing fine, though. His strength is okay. His rocks are a little low, and his actions are not that amazing. But he did fix his food. If he gets a good tactic, he can fix his military. I think he's in a decent shape. And I was really struggle bussing kind of hard. My actions aren't amazing. I do have a full H2 economy thanks to Watt, but I currently have no way to generate culture. And even with both selective breedings, I'm here in the yellow bank. I've never got any colonies or anything, so I'm going to start running out of food. Or at least it's going to be difficult for me to get workers. I'm not like getting a worker every turn. So here I thought I was in a decent position to get second over Antoine and Caumont if I could fix my military, but I thought that How You Doing was going to win this game. So what actually ended up happening? Well, I'm going to pause for a second here, and we shall see in a bit. Okay, so on Antoine's first full turn of age 3, he's got some issues. He has this revolting worker. He can't make a new worker. He does have St. Peter's, but he has no way of getting a happy face. So he does the revolution into constitutional monarchy for exactly all of his science, and then to deal with this worker, he has to cash out a military action and one of these swords, which also costs him a tactic. But he had a plan for this, which is to use the phalanx, and the phalanx is it's 3 strength in this game. Not 4, there was no Sun Tzu. This game, I got my games mixed up, but it is an extra strength compared to the Legion anyways, but it does mean that Antoine is low on cards and missing out on 2 H3 draws, which can be a big deal. So he's not a terrible spot here with the actions and certainly the resources, but things are just a little bit clunky. Then we go over to How You Doing. He plays an event, and we get the Cold War, which is unfortunate because I played this and I would have loved to get 6 science, but instead I gifted 6 science to 2 of my opponents. Good job, Boris. Now it's time to research the architecture and build the Eiffel Tower. So, How You Doing is looking great. Strength, he's the leader. Actions, he's got the most civil and the most military. His science is fine. His culture is the highest. His rocks are fine, but with his extra actions, like having at least a 2 action lead versus everyone else, he can just use yellow cards for actions. And he's got Bach and Opera ready to go, basically, to start generating some points. In fact, he wastes no time. He plays Bach, grabs the rifles, researches them, upgrades 1 for raw strength, takes some reserves and an efficient upgrade, and then next turn, he is ready to rock and rizzle with these operas. So I was extremely nervous. I didn't really understand how I was going to catch up this game, but there was a bit of a clue. I did draw a War Over Culture, which is nice. There have been no H2 tactics played, but if I could get an H3 tactic, or if one of my opponents would oblige me by playing a classic army or Napoleonic army or something, which I know is a bit of a dim hope, but if one of them did that, then I got the rifles, the cannon, maybe I could make something happen here. But with my action deficit compared to How You Doing, I didn't really like my chances here. However, I was optimistic that I could at least get 2nd place. So on my turn, I obviously can't aggress on anybody. I don't want to play an event when I'm the weakest, so I grab Military Theory. It's a tough one because it costs me 3 actions, and I just spent half my turn last turn taking 1 card computers. Definitely the tanks and the reserves are both extremely appealing here, not to mention multimedia to get some more science and culture, or Marie Curie, who would give me 2 science, 2 culture, and 1 strength here. There's a lot of temptation, but I thought, okay, if I'm going to do warring, I need to have Military Theory. This is an early Military Theory. We're still seeing age 2 cards in the row, so it came out pretty close to the top. Now, there are 2 copies of it, but Lord knows where the other copy is or if someone takes it, so I could not wait for this thing to wheel. I thought, okay, this is my top priority. I gotta just do this. I also took the tanks because I want to make sure that I have access to any age 3 tactics I might draw. It would suck if I got something like the tank cannon tactic, because I'm not really geared for that at the moment at all. But Modern Army, there are 2 copies of it. Hell, I would take Shock Troops at this point, the one with 1 rifle and 3 tanks, because I mean, I just gotta get off of this 3 strength phalanx. So this seemed too important to pass up. And that leaves me with 2 actions, which is a bit frustrating because it would be nice to be able to get a good yellow card, but there's nothing here to take. Marie Curie is also nice, but I would be corrupt. So I do spend an action researching the tanks and just upgrading a couple for raw strength. And then I play the frugality and raise some population. So I'm out of corruption. I can get another worker next time. If I'm lucky enough, I could maybe build some cannon to do a tactic. You know, it's a little jumping the gun, you might say. Like, well, you upgrade these tanks. What happens now if you get one of the infantry cannon tactics? There are 2 copies of those. That is a very good point, and maybe, you know, I shouldn't have gone all in like this. I could have gotten out of corruption just by raising population without frugality. So it's possible I misstepped here and did not help my kind of backward situation against Hugh, but that's what I played. And when I draw cards, I drew 2 cards. I also passed up an H3 draw in a sensitive situation. I could have maybe only upgraded 1 tank, for example, but I gave up 2 draws. However, the 2 draws I gave up 1 draw, but the 2 draws I got were, I have to confess, unbelievably lucky. The Modern Army, which is perfect. It's the highest tactic in the game and the one that I'm the best equipped to use. With just 2 cannons and 2 rifles, I would have 2 instances of this, thanks to these tanks I built sort of prematurely. And I got another War over Culture. So now my game plan is very clear. I have to just hope that my opponents are somewhat inefficient enough and that I can use my good rock production here, thanks to James Watt, to build up a couple of modern armies and do a couple of wars. And maybe that can catch me up to Hudun. Comment plays an event. It's Call to Arms. And okay, it's a good thing this didn't happen any earlier because I would have lost some actions here. Granted, in H3, when this flips, you are getting H3 draws, so there is a little bit of a consolation, but I still think would rather have my civil actions, especially now that I got lucky and just ripped 2 amazing cards from the top of the deck, like the believer of the heart of the cards that I am. Now, Comment grabs the fundamentalism. He's got a ton of science to burn, gets an H3 government. He researches the method, upgrades a lab, upgrades another lab to fix up the science. He is missing some science from fundamentalism, so a bit of a building turn for him. Didn't go for this reserves, just fixed his actions, fixed his science, and hoarded up some more rocks for the future. All right, we got Antoine up now. Finally, he's back in last place where he belongs, but he flips an event. It is not a strength-based event. I was willing to bid a hefty amount for this amazing colony, but obviously I wasn't even close. Hugh takes it down with a trio of warriors here, so I didn't mind seeing this because I do want to go to war with him, so if he has to spend resources building back up his army, I'm very happy about that. We get a temple from Antoine. We raise population a couple of times. He grabs the rockets so that he also has access to... Actually, he already had cannons. Okay, I guess he just wants rockets. That's interesting. He could have just researched cannons and saved himself the action. But okay, what would he do with the extra action unless you go for Marie or multimedia? I mean, the multimedia is good. It would take 2 turns to save up the science. It would give him a way to generate culture. Yeah, that might have been better than just getting rockets. Like, the marginal value of rockets over cannon is a little strange. Plus, rockets do cost 2 more science than cannon do, so you're spending some science. Marie Curie would have been 2 strength, 1 science, 2 culture. Maybe he judges that as not being as good as Marie, who's also giving him kind of culture and science, but he is basically out of his ability to make workers every turn. We're now on every other turn, and soon it's going to get worse than that. Yeah, I think either multimedia or Marie Curie would have been better than these rockets. And then he doesn't have a tactic yet, so he just passes the turn. All right, so now Hudun is final on strength. He doesn't play an event. He gets down the opera, raises population, makes an opera, plays reserves for food, makes another worker, makes another opera. So he's getting 17 ludicrous culture per turn here, at the risk of being a little bit behind everybody else and a bit down on science. He still has 4 actions left. He decides to play reserves 3 for 4 rocks because he can do it without being corrupt, and upgrades a warrior, grabs these rockets so that he has some tactical options. These are actually important for him because he doesn't have cannon, and then he plays the revolutionary idea just to pass the turn. He also chooses not to grab Marie, but that makes sense because in his case, it would just be one of each. And he's got Bach for a ludicrous amount of culture from these operas. Bach is generating 4 culture a turn here. So he's generating a stupid amount of culture. I am extremely nervous that like he's going to get so far ahead that even after I declare war on him, I'm not going to be able to steal enough culture to beat him. But I feel like it's my best chance, especially since I drew out of like 3 or 4. Yeah, my first 3 draws of the Age 3 deck, unless I threw away an Age 3 card, were like a War Over Culture, the best possible tactic I could have gotten, and another War Over Culture, which is just ludicrous. I mean, you sometimes go the whole game without ever drawing a single war. So I did get incredible Age 3 draws, and it gives me a fighting hope of catching up to this wildcard player who is unrated, so it's really hard to know or gauge how strong he is. Here, I decided to grab Marie. Now, I was actually thinking about taking her last time for 2 actions. And it's a little weird that I take her now, since I had these computers that I paid 3 action for, and there's Sid. But I judged correctly or incorrectly that the extra science is more important than the culture. Like, I thought, yes, I could of course research computers here, upgrade some computers, and start generating 6 culture per turn with Sid. She's giving me 2 culture per turn, which is less than Sid, but she's also giving me science instead of costing me science, and she's also giving me a little bit of strength. Plus, she costs 2 actions less to pick up right now, which does matter. So I took her, not sure if that was the correct call, maybe just doing Sid would have been smarter. And I grabbed the revolutionary idea instead of taking Sid. So my plan is that with 10 plus 6 is 16, plus 6 is 22. If I build a lab, I have 23 science, and that's enough to get the military theory and the airplanes, and then I don't need any other attacks. I'm all in on warfare at that point. Now, besides that, every turn I would like, of course, to not be corrupt. Luckily, after researching the cannon and building a cannon and raising population, I am not corrupt. Of course, I could have taken these reserves, so I did pass up the chance to take these reserves, and as we'll see, the lack of rocks really ends up haunting me. So maybe it would have been worth it to wait a turn before doing these cannons and making sure I could grab these reserves, because in the short term, the cannons aren't really doing anything for me, really. Like, yes, I am, strength leader instead of, like, 3rd or something like that. So if there's a strength-based event in here, I could benefit from it. So there is, like, some value to that. But having 4 extra rocks, or in some cases even using it for 4 food, would have been smart. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, with the way that the blue pips lined up, paying 5 food would have cost me a 3 and 2 2s, and that would have gotten me out of corruption. So I didn't actually have to make a cannon here to not be corrupt. It's possible that by not taking this, I screwed up. And I also decided to play the Modern Army. Now, that was an interesting question, because if I play it now, I make it available to my opponents a turn earlier. But I figured that Antoine was... Antoine, yeah, it's interesting, because Antoine could take Modern Infantry, potentially. There's 2 copies of it. Only one of them is here. So this does open it up to him. But I thought, okay, he doesn't have the science for Modern Infantry now anyways. So if I played a turn later, it's kind of all the same thing. Like, I'm delaying him a turn. Hugh would need the other copy of tanks and these rockets, and he's on pretty low science to research that, and Caumont would need the Modern Infantry and the tanks. So I thought, you know what, let's just get it down. Normally, of course, you don't want to give up Age 3 draws, but in this particular case, I already have 2 wars. I don't need any other wars. This is it. This is my strategy. I'm going to steal culture from Hugh and hope that direct... he loses, I gain culture, lets me catch up to him, and that the culture I steal from him raw lets me stay ahead of or catch up to Caumont and Antoine. I'm actually not doing bad on culture thanks to Jan von Shish Kebab. I got an early culture boost, so I'm doing okay versus Antoine and Caumont. I just need to stay ahead of them. It's Hugh who's generating 13 extra culture per turn against me that I need to worry about. So that was my thinking. I passed out on a draw again, and then at the end of my turn, I drew another War Over Culture, which is ridiculous. I'm not taking any credit for anything that happened here, but once I drew this 3rd war, I actually started to have an inkling that I was going to win this game. Between the Modern Army and 3 wars, now I was really sure that I was going to have enough to just blast Hugh back into the Stone Age and take over the win from Caumont and Antoine. So Kamon plays an event. It's a colony. I don't want anything to do with that. You guys can pay your military units to win these colonies. I was happy to see them bidding against each other. Antoine also pays off a legion and a couple of defense cards to take this colony home, which I was ecstatic about. Kamon takes the modern infantry, which I was ecstatic about, because now it means that Antoine can't take it for the modern army, and it's not there for Hudun either. Granted, the other copy is there, but still, I was happy to see him grab it. He's the person I was worried about the least, with extremely low rocks and not enough civil actions to like make up for it. He upgrades some units, grabs the reserves that I left for him, grabs Engineering Genius to help build a Wonder later, and also some points, and passes the turn. Antoine plays an event. We get Emigration, which is a nothing burger. We get another rocket here. He does have the tactic, so he did a pretty good job with the colony. I was like, oh, I'm happy to see him burn out his swords, but he doesn't need the swords for the tactic, so putting him back into his pool was actually good for him in a way. He grabs the airplanes, which makes sense, puts the spaceflight under construction. It looks like he might be angling for Einstein here, or for that matter, Steve Jobs. Either one of those with these two labs and the science production and a fairly high amount of rocks would be enough to just, make a bunch of technologies and get a big spaceflight going. And of course, he's got enough strength to make himself an unappealing target for wars. This is another case, though, where I'm really happy to see his limited military actions, because it's going to be hard for him to go to war without military theory. All right, so Hudun's up, plays an event. We get Civil Unrest, another nothing burger. And this is a bit of a strange turn. So he researches the rockets and blows up an opera to build a rocket. I think you've got to commit. Like, yes, maybe you're vulnerable. Maybe you're in a difficult situation. But don't blow up the opera that you're winning with. This is 4 culture per turn. It's a lot of culture. Blow up your lab. I mean, that's the way you got to play. If you lose, then you lose. If you run out of science, you run out of science. But, I mean, you can't just go blowing up your operas, in my opinion. He grabs the reserves because he does need it, if nothing else, to, make more food to get more workers out so he doesn't have to keep blowing up his operas. He makes this rocket just for some raw strength, grabs a military buildup, and tanks, so he'll be able to copy my modern army at some point. And then he grabs the urban growth. Now, the good news is that he doesn't have enough science for these tanks, so I'm not in danger of him copying my modern army when I go to war with him next turn. Now, I actually do think I mess up here, so I have time to make all 3 wars. It's crazy how early I got those wars over culture. It's not often that you get 3 wars over culture early enough that you can actually declare them all. But the question is, who do I declare on? So Hudun is the obvious target. He has the most culture, and he's the lowest strength. But I miscalculated. I usually do a pretty good job calculating wars, but I missed an important thing here. If we close that window, I was considering all the tactics that he could have. I was like, okay, making sure he's, science short from playing the tanks and stealing mine. He's science short of getting airplanes down. But what I overlooked is this stupid tactic, the worst one in the game, this one. Infantry, 2 cannons. It's like the worst H3 tactic, maybe other than shock troops. Maybe you could say it's better than shock troops, but it's definitely the worst or second worst H3 tactic, and it's just a really bad tactic in general. But with that tactic specifically, if he makes 3 rockets, he goes from 1 strength from Fighting Band to 18 strength from 2 copies of that tactic. 2 rifles, 4 rockets. So that's an increase of 17 strength. In addition, rockets for him are worth 6 because he has the Great Wall. So that's 18 from the rockets plus 17 from the tactic boost is a total of 35. And 22 plus 35 is 57, which is more than I'm going to get this turn. Even though I was fairly lucky with the fact that another copy of airplanes showed up. If these airplanes had both stayed in the deck, I might not have been able to comfortably declare a war this turn. I mean, I could have done, because I could not actually make another army. To make another army, I need a cannon and 2 rifles. That's 15 rocks, and I'm 1 rock short. So I could make some raw strength and a military theory, but it would be very dicey territory to declare war on anyone. But luckily, there was another Air Force in the row, so it showed up and I could declare war, but the right person, I believe, would have been Kamon. He only has 8 rocks to work with, and no matter what tactic he has, even if he has the infantry, cannon tactic, that's 11 strength, plus the cannon is 14. He can go up to 43, and that I can beat. That's the person I should have declared war against. But I went for Hudun without thinking about it, and it's crazy. Like, every other tactic he could possibly have does not let him catch up to me, but that one lets him beat me. I stand corrected. If he gets the cannon infantry tactic, I believe he can tie me. I'm not 100% sure. I think he can tie me exactly. But if he gets the one with 1 infantry and 2 cannons, he beats me. So, there's 2 cards in the deck that he could actually tie me or beat me with. So he was not the right person to declare war on. But I missed it, so I declare the war. And then I do what I can, which is play this revolutionary idea that I bought very dearly, as well as the airplanes that fortunately showed up, to make an airplane for 5 plus 13 is 18 strength, going up to 51. So it'd be enough to beat Comont's 43, and Hudun could tie it, or beat it and go up to 57, which would, of course, be very bad for my game. Now, tragically, with these last two actions, I cannot take this patriotism, which I would love. And as we'll see, this patriotism would have been amazing, or that reserves I didn't take before. It would have been really, really incredible to be able to get some extra rocks, but I'm just an action short. That's the problem with only having 6. So I have to do something kind of dumb with my last actions. I raise population and just build... Oh, sorry, that's not dumb. This actually is relevant. I raise population and build a lab. So... Okay, I should back up. So if I had enough action stake patriotism, there would have been a problem, which is that next turn I would have had 4 plus 6. I just built this lab, and that's not enough to do the military theory. So I would not have been able to declare a war and build another army. So there is that point to consider, though I still would have liked the patriotism regardless. I ended up building this third lab just because I need 1 science. Like, I'm willing to spend however many actions and 3 rocks just to buy 1 science. So next turn I can get military theory and declare war and build more than 1 unit. I don't care about drawing cards anymore. There's enough cards for me. I got an aggression as well, which is nice. So if I'm done declaring wars, I can blow somebody up. But I did need that science. And I guess if I had been able to take the patriotism, but at the cost of this lab, that would have been troublesome for me. After I submitted the turn, while waiting for Comont's move, that's when I realized that Hudun could beat me. So I was really, really scared to see which of those tactics he had, or if I was maybe lucky and wasn't going to get punished by my mistake because he wouldn't have any of them. But something incredible happened. So Comont played an event which flipped this impact of strength, which is quite lucky for me because I was just there to win it, while Hudun, just the timing was perfect, got 0. Comont played reserves for rocks, upgraded some more swords just for some raw strength. He takes the patriotism that I didn't take and the reserve, so he's just getting a bunch of rocks here. And what we're about to see on Antoine's turn is a flipping of the card in the title of this video, International Negotiations. This ended up being the most insane international negotiations flip I have ever seen in all of my time playing Through the Ages. So, if you know the game, you already know this card. But in case anyone's watching who's not as intimately familiar with every single card of Through the Ages, let's do a little bit of a timeout. So this card makes the strongest civilization steal 3 food, 3 rocks, or 3 science from the weakest civilization. The catch is that the strength leader doesn't get to choose which one they take. The person choosing is whichever person happened to have flipped up the event. So if the strongest person flips the event, they take whatever's most valuable to them. If the weakest player flips up the event, they give up whatever they can do without the least, or whatever they can do the least without. But if someone else flips the event, then that's where things get really spicy, because Antoine here flips up an international negotiations, and it's between the 2 people who are currently at war with each other. So that is a really significant decision. I would argue that Antoine's choice of what to do on this international negotiations was the single most important decision he would make this game, and it might be the most important decision he makes in this entire round of the tournament. It was a really important decision, and I don't know how much he thought about it. I know that for myself, I often make that decision pretty hastily when I'm not one of the people involved. So it's possible he didn't think about it that much, or maybe he did and just misjudged. But if we take a look at the situation here, it sucks to give food because that clearly helps me a lot, and it sucks to give up science because that also helps me a lot. I need the science to, get the military theory. Granted, I have enough of it, but if I ever want anything else, it would suck to give up the science. So Antoine chose rocks. But if food and science, choosing between them is like choosing between a rock and a hard place, choosing rocks as option number 3 is like sticking a live grenade in your mouth and waiting for it to go off. You cannot do rocks here. And this is why, I learned this myself from this game. I did not really think about this ever before. When you are the person deciding for international negotiations between 2 people who are not you, you need to look at their boards. For me, in order to build another instance of this tactic, I need 15 rocks and I have 13. So getting 2 rocks means the difference between having and not having an extra 13 strength. That's 26 points compared to whoever I declare war against, and 13 points over everyone else. That is a massive amount of strength. It's actually not that. I mean, as I'm building the unit as well. So it's actually 16, 3 for the unit plus 13 for the tactic. So it's 32 points against whoever I declare war against, a huge wonder, and 16 points versus everyone else, a modestly sized wonder. It's a big deal. You can't give that to one of your opponents. That's just way too strong. Meanwhile, for Hudun, stealing his rocks stops him from tying me or beating me in the war. Now, maybe you could say, well, Hudun's currently the leader, so you want him to do bad in the war. But Borystina here has a big strength difference over everybody and is ready to go to make another copy of the biggest tactic in the game. So you can't help her, I don't think. I think that helping this person out of some feeling of like, oh, well, maybe if I make it easier for Borystina, that'll somehow help me in the end. I don't think that really works. I think you gotta let Borystina hurt Hudun, and then you just gotta try to win from there and hope that Borystina doesn't draw any wars over culture or anything like that. Maybe that was the thinking. Maybe Antoine did this on purpose to stop Hudun from building up and catching me. But then that helped me way too much. So I think Antoine just had to choose between giving me the food or the science, which I would have loved. Probably science would have mattered the least, since I went this kind of clunky way to give myself the science I needed for military theory. I don't really care about any other technology. Maybe Antoine was worried I cared about computers. Or maybe Antoine was just like, let's pick the thing that, he already has the most of, because then it doesn't really make any difference. You cannot just make the decision looking at this screen. You got to look at the boards and see what consequences the choice you make actually has. So Antoine, poor Antoine, he chose to have Hudun give me 3 rocks, which, I mean, it's hard to explain the emotions I felt when I saw this, because I knew I messed up declaring war against him. And then I saw another player who was not me just hand me the biggest gift of my life by preventing Hudun from catching up and from letting me declare my next war with an extra 16 strength. It was just unbelievable. So then Antoine, probably knowing or not knowing anything about what he has just done, raised his population, grabbed Einstein, went up with his plan of getting a big space flight, took the computers, played Einstein, researched them, got that lab going. So he's really putting his all into making the space flight as big as possible. Also builds another rocket, so his strength is very healthy. He's thinking, oh, yeah, I've got plenty of food, plenty of rocks, tons of rocks, huge science. I'm going to, build a big old space flight, and maybe I can win this game. All right, so Hudun's up, plays an event. It's Impact of Variety, which I was happy about. I'm about to gut my civilization, so the fact that I was able to sneak this in and get 14 points from it is, of course, tremendous for me. I was really, really happy about the timing of those first 3 impact events to trigger. And he does a pretty predictable thing. He plays the military buildup, makes a rocket, grabs the satellites, researches them for some extra strength. I wasn't even counting these satellites, by the way, in my calculations. He blows up his other opera. I don't know what this is. I don't know why he's blowing up these operas. There's a revolutionary idea here. If you want to blow up a lab and take a revolutionary idea, that might be better. He does take it, but then, okay, why not blow up a lab? And then he makes another rocket, but he doesn't have enough, even with these reserves, to make another rocket, because of the 3 rocks that the Treaty of Versailles stole from him. He grabs the Pro Sports to, I don't know, I mean, it's nothing he takes would be that significant here, I don't think. And then he passes the turn, and I was very pleased to see he did not have either one of the tactics that would have given him either an 8 or an 11 strength boost. So instead of a little war, it actually ends up being a pretty big war. I get 38 points ahead of him. And now the question is, whomst do I declare war on next? And after looking at it for a while, I was really heartbroken to realize it's my boy Antoine. So I hate looking a gift horse in the mouth, or I guess in this case, it's punching a gift horse in the face. But the thing is, I need to declare war on him. So Hudun, I could declare war on, but he could get one of those tactics. He still has these reserves. And there's also a psychological thing. I mean, I just declared war on him, so it does feel a little bit bad to declare war on him again. Antoine, I know exactly what he's going to do. So he's got 20 rocks, but I know exactly what he's going to do with them. He's going to research Air Force. He's going to make an Air Force, a rocket, and a horse. Like, I know he's going to do that. It's going to be 10, 13, plus another 20. For this, that's 33. He's going to go up to 65. So I'm going to have a decent chunk of war on him, and I'm going to be happy about it. Hudun maybe would have also been a valid target because he is still ahead on culture versus Antoine, but I considered this lead a bit illusory because Antoine is going to make the space flight, and it's going to be big. Every tech he researches from age 3 is essentially worth 6 points with Einstein and space flight. So he's basically tied with Hudun here as far as I was concerned. So I thought, since I knew what he was going to do, and I just declared war on Hudun, and I don't want to be a jerk. I figured it would be nice to go after him. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Boris, why not Comont? Comont only has like 4 rocks over here and, okay, another 8 rocks in reserve, but, you know, what can he do? Well, yeah, I can also think, okay, if he does have one of those tactics, he can catch up a little bit. I will still beat him. But what I was actually concerned about with Comont is that he would resign, because he's got the worst culture, the worst rocks. And I was worried that if I did my big move I'm about to make here, thanks to Antoine letting me have an extra, 16 strength, that he would just resign because he would feel like there was no chance of him winning. Antoine, I figured he's not going to resign because he still has, the Einstein thing going on, and he can get up to a pretty high strength, guaranteed. Whereas if Comont doesn't have one of those tactics, he's going to be very poor on strength. And I didn't want to risk going up to a big war and only getting 7 points for my trouble. So, Antoine, I'm really sorry, but that was my reasoning. It wasn't personal, and I really do appreciate the gift, but I had to do it, in my opinion, to make the most sense for myself. So I researched the military theory. After declaring war, I now have enough actions and enough rocks to make an army. Tragically, I'm not able to get any workers out of my bank, but that's fine. I just blow up all my labs. Marie Curie with no lab. 0 lab Curie. Curie, who needs them? Who needs labs when you got a box with plutonium in it? Just, go hog wild, lady. All right, so there it is. I get my big tactic. I go up to 77 strength, and now I'm tragically 1 action short of taking this efficient upgrade, which would have been great. It would have given me a free upgrade here, which is very relevant because I need to get this worker out, but it's unhappy. So unfortunately, I can't quite do that. I don't have anything useful to do. I take this just to maybe hate shaft it from somebody, and then I pass the turn. I could have taken the internet, but it's worth like 0 points, by the way, because I don't have any buildings. So it was one of those cases where maybe if this was like a usable wonder, like fast food chains or something, I could have gone for it. Comont plays patriotism, and he's playing a very disciplined game. He's going after the army. He does have the positional army for himself. Now, obviously, this is not a very high amount of strength. 53 is much less than what Antoine would have had. And I figured that even if he had this tactic, that was going to be the case. He could not have made an extra 2 cannons here. He would have needed 10 rocks for that, and with 3 plus 4, he only has 7. But I was just afraid of him resigning, so even after seeing this, I did not really regret my choice. All right, so Antoine's up, and Antoine does exactly what I calculated. So he raises population, gets the airplane down. He disbands a sword, makes a horse, blows up a mine, makes another rocket. So now he's got 2 full tactics. One of them's doubled with airplanes, goes up to 63. It would have been 2 higher if he had like gutted one of these labs or another mine instead of blowing up a sword, but it's fine. He grabs efficient upgrade, researches the cannon just to get the points for Einstein and spaceflight, and takes oil, and passes the turn. Now, one of the nice things about declaring war on him is that if he goes all out like he does here, he's actually not going to finish spaceflight. So Einstein's still giving him 3 culture, but he's not going to get that huge payoff at the end. All right, Hudun's looking a little bit vulnerable. He flips an Impact of Harmony, which I was actually really happy about. I was thrilled to get 8 points off of it because I'm gutting my civilization pretty bad. So only being 4 points behind everybody before other people could build up their stuff more, if that was a thing, was really lucky for me, I considered. So he plays the revolutionary idea, gets down the tanks, blows up a mine, builds back an opera. He's like built 2, then blew them both up. Now he's built up another one. Plays the reserves, gets a tank. He's got the modern army from me. Now he's up to 54, which is comparable to his opponents. Grabs revolutionary idea and patriotism to continue building his army if it should come to that. And then he passes the turn. And now I get 1 more chance to declare war. And who is it going to be? I could declare war on Comont now because Comont now can't resign. It'll be age 4 when it hits my turn, and no resignation is allowed on age 4. But the problem is I was looking at this, and I just could not justify attacking Comont. At the end of the day, Hudun, despite getting hit by a war, still has a ton of culture and is still making a ton of culture. So I was like, well, now I have to go after this guy. I'm about to steal a bunch of things from Antoine, push him down a little bit. I stopped his space flight, so I took a big bite out of him. And now we got to go after Hudun 1 more time. Maybe on the principle of it all, I should have just gone after Comont. If I say, hey, I'm going to just declare war on everybody, and then you guys can sort it out. It does feel a bit mean to pick on one person, but I thought there was still like some tiny chance that maybe Hudun could catch up to me from events or something. I think in reality, I was a bit afraid of Ghost with this sort of split of civilization. Like, he doesn't have excellence in any great area, maybe impact of progress. I just didn't think he was going to catch up on events, but okay, he does have a good impact of government. Impact of progress is pretty good. Maybe there's some sort of crazy thing that could happen there. So I went after him a second time. So sorry, Hudun. Maybe, like, in retrospect, I wish I had gone after Comont, as we'll see. But I declare war on my top culture competitor 1 more time. I blow up a mine and another mine. I gotta gut my civilization pretty hard. And I make another airplane to get another 5 plus 13 is 18 strength, going up to a total of 95. I then grab the International Red Cross, which I confess is very lucky that was in the game. Obviously, it's the only wonder I could possibly build, and the fact that I had enough actions to take it is really fantastic. Caumont could have actually built the whole damn thing. And if he was going to, like, if this were somehow a case where I could not take this wonder, then I would have done the war on Caumont, because he was getting a pretty big payout here, and I think that made him more dangerous than Hudun. But since I could take it myself, I grabbed it. I took the Urban Growth for like a free upgrade of my temple next time. It doesn't actually matter if I build a Stage of this Wonder now, because the Age 2 events are gone, so there's not going to be any surprise resources like economic progress. Caumont makes a stage, Antoine makes a stage, and Hudun doesn't have enough food to make a stage. So no matter what, I'm getting 3 stages of this. So that's why I wasn't worried about it. I took the extra building. Not that it matters that much. And then it was over to Caumont. So he offered me a peace treaty, which I rejected because he gets 2 culture from it and I get only 1. I didn't want to meddle. I didn't want to give him like an extra 2 points versus his competitors. I felt bad enough that he was the only person I didn't declare war on, so I wanted things to be, you know, as honest as possible, given that I declared war on one person twice instead of everybody 3 times. He then built a Stage of my Wonder, grabbed Steve Jobs, played him, got the Air Forces, researched it, and then he raised his population at the end here, which is interesting. It does get him out of corruption, but I don't think the rocks are very relevant. He should have taken oil. He's going to have enough science next turn to research it, and that's 4 points, and I'm pretty sure that getting out of corruption is not going to make a 4-point difference. I could be wrong, so I do think he made a little bit of a misplay there. And then he made another Air Force. I guess that's what. So he made another Air Force, but the thing about this is that Impact of Strength has already come and gone, and this is not going to stop an aggression from hitting you, so it's really not important to make this airplane. You know, you might as well get the 4 extra points with another research from Steve Jobs. Okay, so Antoine is up. No space flight for him. He offers international tourism to Hudun, which is really interesting. So he is getting 4 points from it, and Hudun is only getting 3 because the space flight's not getting built. So it was a bit of a gamble, but you know, Antoine is a pact specialist. You give him a pact, he'll find some way to offer it to somebody, no matter how ridiculous it is. And in this case, it worked. So it makes sense because he goes down a point compared to Hudun, but he goes up a point compared to me and Caumont. So it kind of works for everybody. I mean, Hudun obviously takes it because he gets ahead of everybody with it. And for Antoine, it makes a little bit of sense because he goes up 2 points compared to me and Caumont. He grabs the civil service, researches it. That's good for a number of events. Upgrades that final lab, builds a Stage of my Wonder, and that swordsman turns into an Air Force to double his tactics, going up to a very respectable strength. Hate drafts these cards in case they matter for anyone else, and then he passes the turn. So poor Hudun has been declared war on. He plays an event. It's the Impact of Industry, right after I gutted my mines, but honestly, I don't care. This is not that bad. No one got anything crazy off of it, so I consider that lucky for myself also. Plays the Revolutionary Idea, gets the pro sports down, and the patriotism. He upgrades the team sports to pro sports for free with the Urban Growth. He grabs Chaplain for an extra 3 culture, blows up his lab and a mine, and then makes a rifle and another rifle. He couldn't have gotten a second instance of the tactic. He would have needed to have another tank. If this rifle had been a tank, by the way, that would have been just an extra 13 points, and he would have been at 77. And I think his placement in the game would have been better if I remember the standings correctly. So it's a bit unlucky that he got these rifles. Okay, not 13 points, 12 points, because the rifles are 6, tanks are 5 with Great Wall. But still, 12 more points of strength would have given him a lot compared to his opponents. But he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the ability to switch. So it's over to me. And at this point, I decided to do a raid against Caumont. Or sorry, not a raid, a plunder. Because I didn't see that much value in blowing up his buildings. Maybe it would have been more valuable to blow his buildings up. But I don't really get anything out of the rocks. I actually did it against Caumont mainly for the food. So I could get an extra worker out in case there's an event where that matters. So I build my wonder with the 9 food that I had. And I get a big chunk of points. Then I raise population with the Urban Growth. I build a new temple. I could have built a lab and upgraded the temple instead. I'm not sure. Maybe I misjudged it, but I build the lab here. I'm not sure it does anything because the Impact of Variety has already come and gone, but that's my ending, and we go over to the event. So mainly what we're doing here is we're seeing who comes in second and third because I have a rather bad... Oh, right. Well, Caumont is up, but I have a pretty big lead. Impact of Architecture rewards me, I think, if we're building the temple, yeah, it's one more point compared to building a lab, I guess, but it's pretty much a nothing burger event. Nothing much happens here. He just plays his endowment, raises population, arena, and that's all there is to do. Okay, so I have a huge lead. Impact of Wonders comes up, and this gives Hudun a little bit of a lead against Comment, because he had Michelangelo and built a bunch of wonders. Antoine is in the bottom. Impact of Colonies shows up, and the standings stay. Happiness shows up. I maxed that out. So does Hudun. So does Comment. So the standings stay where they are, but it looks pretty clear at this point. Antoine, who was the whipping post for much of the game, will remain as such. And now we get Impact of Balance. On this, Hudun, who had to gut his civilization thanks to my wars, gets 0, while Comment gets 8 with a 7-point lead. And then the final event is the Impact of Progress, which Comment did nicely in. Hudun did a little bit better, but not better enough. And with 5 points, Comment stays in second place. So I don't know if I played this right. It's an interesting thing because, I think that you should always play to win. But Through the Ages does a really good job in some cases of making you feel a kind of social pressure. Like, I didn't want to declare war on the same person twice. I would have rather split it up. If I had, then Hudun would have come in second place. But I think with a 5-point difference, Hudun maybe could have come ahead of Comment anyway, with 5 extra points, coming from somewhere. The thing for me was that I would have declared war on Comment instead of Antoine, except that I was afraid of Comment resigning, or I was not afraid of Antoine resigning. And because of that, Comment got second place instead of fourth place. Had I declared war on him and resigned, he would have been in fourth. So it was a little bit weird. I felt like I was kind of picking who was second, which I don't like in these tournament settings. But anyway, it was a good game. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon with the other game from Stage 3 of this tournament, which also ended right around the same time that this one did. Thanks for watching.